Operation Epic Fury. Here's the detail that blows up the whole media lie. On July 1st and July 2nd, real tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz split in plain sight. Normal ships chose the U.S.-protected Omani route, while Iran-linked and sanctioned traffic brushed up in the Iranian lane. That's not Iranian control, that's Iranian isolation. Then President Trump dropped the hammer. Not one ship got through his wall of steel. Iran is drowning in 300% inflation, and if Tehran wants relief, America will feed them with our corn, wheat, and soybeans. That's not a standoff, that's a checkmate. And the funeral footage out of Tehran makes it even worse for the regime. See, this matters for one reason above all: your wallet. The Iranian terror regime spent years blackmailing the world with the Strait of Hormuz, and the global media machine kept selling that script as if Tehran still held the energy market by the throat. Donald Trump wrecked that lie. Hormuz stayed open, oil panic cratered. The July 1st and 2nd tanker tables show the truth in black and white. Finland prosperity, Togo prosperity, Spain B, Germany B, Bahamas prosperity. Ordinary traffic moved through the Omani line under U.S. protection, while sanctioned names like Serena, Sinopa, Dahlia, Humanity, and Trend piled into the Iranian lane. That split tells you exactly who controls the water. America does. And that means fewer price shocks here at home, stronger deterrence abroad, and zero reward for a regime that still launches drones, threats, and propaganda. Trump did not bribe Tehran. He broke Tehran's leverage, then turned collapse into American advantage. And Trump just proved what happens when clarity crushes blackmail. And if your family is on Medicare, you need that same clarity now. The Medicare confusion industrial complex floods seniors with noise so they stay trapped. Chapter is simple by design. One call, one advisor. They look at your doctors, your prescriptions, your whole situation, and tell you the truth with no propaganda, just facts. They work for you, not big insurance. And that's how you stop getting played by a rigged maze. If you're already on the right plan, they'll say it. If not, they can help you switch. It's free, and it takes under 20 minutes. Last year, people who found new plans with Chapter saved an average of $1,100. Call the number you see on your screen, 910-728-4109. Don't let bureaucratic chaos push your family around either. Now, one more before we get into the tweets, because this says everything. While Iran barked about approved shipping routes and a forceful response, Tehran also staged a farewell ceremony for Ali Khamenei, with black banners, crying officials, and Dmitry Medvedev flying in from Moscow to salute a dead anti-American order. So ask yourself, if this regime still ran the table, why does it look like a wake? I'm going to pull up the tweets because you're going to see the humiliation too. Here's President Trump talking about Iran. They've got 300% inflation.
I did a blockade that was essentially not a blockade. It was a wall of steel. We have the great Navy, the greatest Navy in the world. These guys are unbelievable. Not one ship got through to Iran. They have 300% inflation. They're making no money. So we're going to take some of the money and we're going to buy them. They need food. They need corn and wheat and soybeans. And we're going to have exclusively our American farmers provide that, assuming we get to the position where we should get to. I think we're going to get there. Their strength is gone. Their bravado is gone, although they keep up a pretty good front. The one thing they do have is fake news. The New York Times said the other day that Iran is in better position now than it was 4 months ago. I said, wait a minute. Their military is gone. Their inflation is up to 300% from 5%. Their leaders are gone. Their second row of leaders are gone. Some of their third row of leaders are gone. Their generals are mostly wiped out. But they said that they are in better shape today than they were 4 months ago before we attacked. No, we were very strong.
So Trump just laid it out. Iran's economy is broken. Military hammered. The media still try to sell the lie that Tehran's stronger. Next, a closer look at Iran's new Strait of Hormuz threats as Trump keeps diplomacy on the table. Iran is issuing new warnings over the Strait of Hormuz while Trump is still pushing diplomacy. The contrast tells you everything in this moment. Tehran wants the world nervous, shipping markets shaken, Gulf nations intimidated, and America pressured into treating threats like negotiation. Trump is doing the opposite.
They're totally defeated militarily. They have some missiles left. We could wipe them out too. And I hit them 3 times last week very hard because they sent a drone into a ship. I hit them. And we're negotiating, and we'll see whether or not. I think they've agreed to just about everything we need.
However, the Islamic Republic issuing a warning to oil tankers moving through the Strait of Hormuz that they must use approved routes or face a, quote, forceful response. Fox News contributor and former CIA station chief Dan Hoffman joins me now. Dan, good morning to you. So these negotiations right now, of course, aren't just about Iran's nuclear program. They're also over the Strait of Hormuz. And yesterday, Iran doubled down on their demand to control the routes that ships take through the strait. Here's the quote from Iran's military command. They say any failure to comply, deviation from the designated routes, or disregard for the navigation protocols of the Islamic Republic of Iran in the Strait of Hormuz will be met with an immediate and forceful response from the armed forces, endangering the security of the violating vessels. So is the situation now that ships are forced to either choose between Iranian demands or brave waters that are overseen by the United States? Because that does not feel like the free flow of commerce here.
Yeah, it's not quite the free flow of commerce. Iran doesn't want to close the strait entirely because they need it open to export their oil. We've lifted the blockade, and so they are selling their oil at market prices, and that revenue is important to their regime, especially, obviously, the IRGC, which I believe will try to use that money to rearm and reconstitute their ballistic missiles and their drones. But at the same time, Iran wants to project power, and they want to enforce some control over their own self-designated sphere of influence. They want to make it clear to the Gulf states and the United States that they can control the Strait of Hormuz going forward, that they will have a role to play in how it's managed.
Yeah, that's right. And President Trump said that he wants to give diplomacy a try. But there is, of course, a limit to everything. And these statements that Iran are making about the strait are obviously pushing it. So what would a military operation actually look like for the United States to regain control or gain control of the Strait of Hormuz if it comes to that?
So first, I think it's important to emphasize we're in kind of an inflection point right now. I don't expect anything to happen between now, July 4th and July 9th, during the funeral for Ayatollah Khamenei. After that, the question is whether we head to negotiations, in real good faith negotiations, which we have not begun yet. There were indirect discussions in Doha, but nothing substantive about Iran's nuclear program. And of course, we've got to be concerned about their ballistic missile program and their support to proxy terrorists, everything.
So while Iran talks tough about controlling shipping lanes, the reality in the water tells a different story. The next chart shows a split, plain as day, Iran-linked traffic hugging the Iranian lane, while most other tankers stick to the U.S.-protected Omani route. Take a look at this. You can see the two different shipping lanes. Interesting. So the traffic map blows up Tehran's bluff. Commercial ships trust American protection, not Iranian threats. Now Mike Waltz at the UN shuts down the regime's propaganda with photos and one blunt message. This isn't Tehran. Iran will not silence us on our own soil. They may work in Tehran, but not in the UN Security Council. We will tell the truth.
Fortunately, the representative of the regime started his remarks today by saying, apparently, this council should not meet, should not speak. Let me remind you where you are. This is not Tehran. This is the United States of America. This is the United Nations Security Council. You will not silence this body. The representative goes on to say that the ambassador from Bahrain, the foreign minister, myself, and other members of this body are full of lies, that we're lying. Let me ask you, what here is a lie? Who's lying here? Is this Arab family in Bahrain in a residential neighborhood whose home was destroyed by an Iranian Shahed drone. Are they lying? Crown Plaza Hotel full of tourists. Are they lying? First responders whose headquarters were struck deliberately so that they couldn't put out fires. Were they lying? Is this hypocrisy? Is this what this council is here to denounce today? I asked the representative, are these lies? Are these photographs? Are these lies? I'd say not.
So after calling out Iran's lies to their face, Waltz raises the pressure, makes the choice clear. In the next clip, he says the world, Iran's neighbors, and even Iran's own people are not with the regime.
There's an old scripture that says, quote, I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Iran cannot keep choosing death and curse. And today, we once again urge Iran to revert to the path of peace and dialogue. The world is not with Iran. Iran's own people are not with this regime. Its neighbors are not with this regime.
So Waltz drawing the moral line piece is still on the table, but the regime keeps choosing death and chaos. Next, he delivers the warning they can't ignore. Trump is offering an opportunity, but his patience is not unlimited.
I cannot stress enough the possibility of real, transformative, positive opportunity for the nation and people of Iran is on the table. But President Trump's patience is not unlimited. The world cannot continue to suffer, and Iran must abide by its obligations to this council that this council voted for without opposition, and the world must hold this regime to account, I think.
So the message from the U.S. is simple. There's still a path, but the clock is ticking. Meanwhile, in Tehran, the regime is putting on a funeral spectacle for Khomeini as Russia and China send their people to pay tribute. A farewell ceremony for former Iranian supreme leader begun in Tehran with memorial events planned in several cities ahead of his burial. Delegations from Russia, China, including Dmitry Medvedev, are expected to attend.
Ya Hussein! اصلا نمیشه باورم که دیگه نیستی بینمون قصه یکی دوتا که نیست تو رو گرفتن ازمون تو رو گرفتن تو رو گرفتن ازمون سخت تحمل غمت وقت خدا حافظیه
So the state funeral is supposed to project strength, but the images coming out of Tehran tell a different story. Next, a top Iranian figure, including President Pezeshkian and Major General Razali, are seen in tears.
ولا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أمواتا بل أحياء.
Yeah, it looks like they just found out, but the tears are the picture of a regime on edge, not a regime in command. Next, the Kremlin makes its move, shows Dmitry Medvedev arriving in Iran for the farewell ceremony. So the peak humiliation sits right there in Trump's own words. Not one ship got through, not one. For years, the Iranian regime built its mythology around Hormuz, squeeze the world, spike oil, terrify markets, force concessions. Donald Trump shattered that racket with a wall of steel and then spelled out the aftermath with brutal precision. 300% inflation, shattered leadership, generals gone, second row gone, third row hit. And while the New York Times tries to sell another fairy tale about Iranian strength, the regime hauled out funeral theatrics in Tehran with Masoud Pezeshkian and Mohan Reizi in tears and Dmitry Medvedev flying in to honor the old order. That's not power. That is collapse wearing stage makeup. So here's the line that matters tonight. Let Tehran, Medvedev, the Chinese delegation, the UN deadweights, or the legacy press launder the regime back into respectability. The receipts are already on the table. The Omani lane carried the real traffic because the United States Navy secured it. The Iranian lane filled up with Iran-linked and sanctioned vessels because blackmail collapsed into self-containment. Trump offered peace from dominance, not surrender, and he even mapped the win all the way back to American soil. Our farmers, our corn, our wheat, our soybeans. That is America First foreign policy with teeth. So keep the pressure on. Demand inspections that stick. Demand no soft deal cooked up by weak-kneed bureaucrats. If you're sick of the propaganda, send this segment to one person who still thinks Tehran held the cards. They need to see the tanker chart, the 300% inflation line, and the tears in Tehran. That trio ends the argument. But we're not going to end the argument here. We're going to continue sending you the news, but you have to make sure that you text the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. We're bypassing the algorithm, sending the notifications direct to you when they don't arrive. Yes, right to your phone, one text message a night. And celebrate the wins with the Next News Network by going to the merch shelf below this video or shop.nextnewsnetwork.com.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now. You know out.